kidnapped by a poet. If I were a poet, I'd kidnap you.
Put you in my phrases.
And me to you to Jones Beach.
Or maybe Coney Island.
Or maybe just to my house.
Lyric you in lilac.
Dash you in the rain.
Blend into the beach to compliment my sea.
Play the lyre for you.
Hold you with my love song.
Anything to win you. Wrap you in the red, black, green.
And show you off to mama.
Yeah. If I were a poet, I'd kidnap you. And that was the Kidnap poem by Nikki Giovanni. Thank you very much. So we are on the Frost stage today, and we have a lot of work to do around the Robert Frost Foundation. So we thought we would start out after we got everybody going with a rousing Nikki Giovanni poem to do some Frost and then maneuver on to all the things we need to do and say today. The pasture.
I'm going up to clean the pasture spring. I'll only stop to rake the leaves away and wait to watch the water clear, I may. I shan't be gone long. You come too.
I'm going out to fetch the little calf that stands by the mother. It's so young, it totters when she licks it with her tongue. I shan't be gone long. You come too. Yep.
This is Stopping by Woods. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods
Fill up with
fill
snow.
up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake. The darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
I have to tell you that we were touring actors and did poetry in schools. We did Robert Frost poetry a lot, but we would have to make a list of the poems that we were going to do. So the next poem is called The Road Not Taken, but to be really quick, we just called it RNT. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as to that the passing there warned it really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I saved the first for another day, but knowing how way leads on to way, doubted I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now we're gonna do one of his real aggressive poems. This is Fire and Ice.
You start. You.
I started?
You started.
I started. Some say the world will end in fire.
Some say in ice.
From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire.
But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. Thank you.
We are going to move on now and do another Frost poem that, yeah, what? No, one of our group is going to do another Frost poem, not us. Yeah. Who's got a Frost poem to do out there? Something that we don't hear every day. All right, let's give a round of applause to Jessica.
Hi, thanks for having me here. So the poem I'm going to do is Acquainted with the Night, which was a poem that my dear friend Mark had chosen for me last year. So for him, I'm going to do it again. I have been one acquainted with the night. I have walked out in rain and back in rain. I have outwalked the furthest city light. I have looked down the saddest city lane. I have passed the watchman on his beat and dropped my eyes unwilling to explain. I have stood and stopped at the sound of feet when far away an interrupted cry came over houses from another street, but not to call me back or say goodbye. And further still, an unearthly height, one luminary clock against the sky proclaimed the time was neither wrong nor right. I have been one acquainted with the night. Can I do another poem? And for Mark, I will do another one of his poems. This poem is entitled Cities. In the beautiful cities from which we came, you wanted to show me the life and time course of Rittenhouse Square and the best Matisse a city bus ride to the Barnes could claim. I wanted to show you Chicago's armillary bridges among spacious... Excuse me, there's a word in here I don't understand. But yet an island sea among the glacial remains of Midwestern land, among the face-bricked 1-acre prairie lots. Here, we discovered minarets of iron column gesso and took pat-down searches to view the Chicago 7 in riotous places that made Martin King cry with despair. Here, same lion-porched and red-room plain that daily urban billboards would proclaim to be cities beautiful. These two became a state of becoming that called us by name.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, thanks for joining me, everybody. I'm thrilled you're doing all this for me. It's incredible. I'm going to read two very short poems that both of them are somewhat connected with my experiences with Mark over the years. The first one comes from my second book. It's called Growing into Infancy, Musings of a Self-Proclaimed Legend. Don't buy this book. It's a ripoff, okay? But anyway, this first one, Mark and I traveled to Japan together in 2004. It was a big anniversary of Basho, the most famous Japanese poet, a 17th century poet who really spread haiku all over Japan and eventually by others all over the world. And Mark and I were walking by a bamboo grove with Brother Ramon. Brother Ramon is a Marist brother, and he was our host. We stayed at their house and everything else. It was really great. And as we were walking by, Ramon said, do you guys know bamboo theology? And Mark looked perplexed, and I says, no. I said, I had never heard of, I heard of liberation theology, but bamboo theology, this one's throwing me. So he said, I can explain it in just a phrase. Deeply rooted, but flexible. And we were both kind of moved by that. It was pretty good. So this is my poem. It's I really didn't expect that kind of greeting. Thank you. This one. This is the poem that I wrote about that experience. Bamboo theology. Deeply rooted, grand, simple, flexible. Fence, food, garden, temple, gate, shrine, dwelling. Rapidly growing, solid, pliable. Marking, sheltering, nurturing, loving. Life-giving mystery from sacred birth. Divinity rising from Mother Earth. Okay. Thank you. The next one I've read several times over the years, and this is a Robert Frost poem. And just to introduce it a little bit, it's the first time I read this poem, it meant nothing to me. But then when I read it again and again, all of a sudden I said, oh my God, there's all kinds of depth here and poetic imagination. And in the second stanza, he has the leaves from the trees that come down here in the autumn and the fall, going back up onto the tree. I said, wow, that only a poet could think of it that way. But anyway, I think this poem is very good, and I know Mark really liked it too. And one time he even asked me to read it, and I was so thrilled I almost fainted on the spot. This is entitled In Hardwood Groves. The same leaves over and over again. They fall from giving shade above to make one texture of faded brown and fit the earth like a leather glove. Before the leaves can mount again to fill the trees with another shade, they must go down past things coming up. They must go down into the dark, decayed. They must be pierced by flowers and put beneath the feet of dancing flowers. However it is in some other world, I know that this is the way in ours.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Aponic. Can you hear me? No? That's better? Okay. You know, when my husband Tony and I were coming in on the common, we were almost expecting to see Mark off on one of the pathways with a table and brochures and pamphlets and everything. He had a love of Lawrence and was steadfast in making bread and roses part of every fall. In the Frost poem, I've chosen The Quest of the Purple Fringed. The speaker is on a search for something he knows he'll find if he keeps looking. It's a rare and delicate purple flower. It might be an orchid or a gentian. We're not sure. It blooms briefly at the end of summer before losing its buds and dying. You could easily miss it if you didn't look hard enough. I'm sure Mark looked hard enough for the beauty and the mystery in life, and no doubt often found it. He certainly would have understood Frost's motivation in this, what I think is an often overlooked poem, The Quest of the Purple Fringed. I felt the chill of the meadow underfoot, but the sun overhead, and snatches of verse and song of scenes like this. I skirted the margin alders for miles and miles in a sweeping line. The day was the day by every flower that blooms, but I saw no sign. Yet further I went to be before the scythe, for the grass was high, till I saw the path where the slender fox had come and gone panting by. Then at last, and following him, I found in the very hour when the color flushed to the petals, it must have been the far-sought flower. There stood the purple spires with no breath of air, nor headlong bee to disturb their perfect poise the livelong day neath the alder tree. I only knelt and, putting the boughs aside, looked, or at most counted them all to the buds in the copse depths that were pale as a ghost. Then I arose and silently wandered home, and I, for one, said that the fall might come and whirl of leaves, for summer was done.
I know we have competition here with I was thinking about Mark too as I was driving in, and maybe you're listening to WCRB today. They're doing A to Z in honor of school starting tomorrow, so Bach and Haydn, and I thought Mark would have liked that. This is a book of Mark's called Essential Elements, Lawrence Poems. And a while ago, after he had passed away, I wanted to look at some of his books. He had so many. And I wasn't sure I'd be able to find them, but I turned and they were right there on the shelf next to my desk. It was lovely. So this one is called Crossing Duck Bridge. What is the significance of the name Duck Bridge? Does anybody know? Is it? Pardon? Oh. Oh, the company name. Okay. The company. Okay. Crossing Duck Bridge. You know Duck Bridge is singing when wheels make the sound of marching men and feel their revolutions meld below into the rippled river's stronger flow along the length of cottonwood fill that divides the river from the mill. While between the river and this glade, the blue sounds of a green parade reverb on every auto's stereo sill where golden reflections already fill nature's green before the shadows there will fill the streets in Bell Tower Square. And nothing gold will stand between crossing Duck Bridge to nature's green. And he's got a poem he loved to play, you know that. He's got To the Library. These are poems either I didn't really know or I've forgotten. Anyway, I am going to the library today. You come too. The singing neon says that it is time to enter and begin my climb. You come too. The lady with the lamp who guards the stair says that Robert Frost for the asking is right there. I shan't be gone long. You come too. And it was Mark who arranged to have the Frost Foundation as a headquarters at the library, which was it's been a great partnership. And I'd like to read one more because you'll see it seems fitting. And this was when the fountain was dedicated a few years ago, rededicated. Lines for the rededication of the Robert Frost circulating fountain on Lawrence Common. Unlike your wilder cousin, West Running Brook, who cuts loose every spring without a backward look, you must wait up for the Parks and Recreation team to prime your pump as in a dream. Only then will you play and run all summer long among whoever comes your way to hear your song. No matter. 1 hour's water over rock is worth 1,000 garden hoses. So recirculate on this granite block for the love of bread and roses. Thank you.
It is a great honor to be here and read poetry in Mark's honor. Mark was such a friend of this festival and such a fan of this festival and such a deep believer in the ideas of social justice that this festival perpetuates. Was a dear friend and mentor to many of us. I'd like to read several of his poems, short ones that are some of my favorites. The first several come from his book, Recovery. Number 60. Finally, an awakening appetite stirs him to pick blueberries for whole grains. Then prospecting walks move 1 foot after another. Salute to every red wing, every high brush berry along the frozen cattails. Reverb the neighborhoods like no other walk. Number 61. Rides out blues before their time when mood indigo darkens the sky, until knocking from the hollow tree changes the mood. So much depends on the Pleiaded player who keeps time for the one who doesn't align to the hollow tree's baseline. Number 62. Makes a first trip to town, driven in the violet shade of community gardens, avoids meter maids and their ticketing machine, freezes on this spot, listens to bells, 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 and old familiar carols, passes poets of the street, meets up and weeps. 64. Fills with potential energy this semicircular orange dome he's about to squeeze to power this beat-up frame that is neither girth nor bone. Nothing gold can stay unsqueezed for long. And so, with bated breath, he circumnavigates the globe and finishes this song. And lastly, I'd like to read his poem called A Present, which was dedicated to my dear children and grandchildren. If there is a better moment than a present with you, I have not seen it. If there is a hell, a deep resentment, it is to be without that present. You are. That is enough for me to forget boundaries between yours and mine. Your present has been to be. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, Robert Frost people, for your beautiful readings and for being such good friends of Mark. I think it was a wonderful experience for him to work with friends. So I much appreciated hearing you read. And fortunately I brought along 2 poems because it occurred to me that with a poem that was called Lawrence and the last lines being bread and roses, I should not bring just 1 poem but 2. And the other poem actually reminded me of that, maybe just because it's about also about stones and water, but it could not be more different. And it's about an experience Mark and I had in France. A French friend told us about the fact that you could go to a place in the river, swim down the river, and swim right under the Pont du Gard. The Pont du Gard is a Roman aqueduct from the year 1000 AD, and I had gone along the top of it, and it's fantastic. No matter how many hundreds of tourists are there, they can't ruin the experience of seeing this fantastic piece of architecture from the past. It's 3 stories high and magnificent. But swimming underneath it was more extraordinary because you could hardly see the tourists on top. It was so high. Fortunately, nobody dropped anything. And swimming underneath among the stones in the river and the trees on the side and then just seeing this monument over us was an extraordinary experience. And of course, Mark wrote a poem about it, which I love, and it's called Swimming Under the Pont du Gard. The sun and summer are at their height, when after you, I have begun to swim along your limestone-heavy sources of the Rhone. I think of those before you on these triple arcs, whose sure footings have bridged this way between their many-layered openings of mind and the load-bearing arches of their hearts' sweet inhalations. The line of arcs above you buoys my chest, neither too low nor too high, along the surfaces of breath, along the sight lines of the eye.